Welcome to the Bold Truth Leadership Podcast, a place where you get the straightforward, no nonsense, no holds barred ideas on leadership and growth, both personally and professionally. The Bold Truth Leadership Podcast is brought to you by the Peak Performance Group. I'm your host, Coach Rick Colster, certified executive coach and the chief coaching officer for the Peak Performance Group, where we help people and organizations align and maximize their potential. Today, folks, I got to tell you something. We got a guest that I am excited to have on board. I'll tell you what, everyone knows how big supporter of our military we are. And this guy right here, he's an author, a veteran, and a master communicator. He, along with his wife, have founded a program that helps married couples communicate clearly and allows them to find that common ground to stand. So he's also the survivor of a suicide bomber and lived to tell his message. And we're hoping he's going to share some of that with us today. Today, we welcome the guy he likes to call himself, the blown up guy, Brian Fleming. Welcome to the Bold Truth, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's our pleasure. We're glad you're here. And we are glad you're here, blown up guy.
Yeah, so there are thousands of guys like me who got blown up. I'm just the guy who got home and thought it'd be really funny to have a website called that. So I bought it for $9 back in 2006. And I looked blown up at the time, but thankfully outfield, you can't tell. But I'm one of many blown up guys. I'm just the guy who decided to joke a little bit more about it maybe.
Well, I think that's one of those things where we have that morbid type veteran humor that I'm familiar with. My families are all military background. In fact, my nephew is still serving. He's in Fort Bragg learning Chinese of all things. Think about that. We're now in the middle of this COVID-19 stuff. He just got his Green Beret in December, and he's learning Chinese. And I laughed at him when he said he was going to do that. So, no, he's not looking so dumb, is he?
Hey, if he made it through selection and earned his Green Beret, he can definitely learn Chinese and pretty much do anything. Yeah.
He's a great kid. And for me, he's my nephew. So, yeah, you're all kids to me at this point. But, yeah, so let's start. Where do we start? Let's talk about you. You're so multifaceted. One of the things that really interested me in having you on the Bald Truth was you're so multifaceted. It's really hard to pick a starting point, dude. Let's jump in and let me see. How did you get here as an expert on resilience and communication?
Well, I'll never call myself an expert, number one. But if I'm that good at it, I'm glad. But I actually didn't get here. It's like we were talking just a few minutes ago. I've been very fortunate to have some incredible people come into my life right after I was injured. I mean, I'm talking 4 or 5 months after, and I'm still sitting at the hospital, burned from the suicide bombing, going through all that. And my very first mentor, a guy named Dave Reaver, who was horribly injured in Vietnam, came to the hospital. And basically, we met. He was giving a speech to me and about 30 other wounded guys who had been wounded in combat. And afterwards, we met. He just sort of said, Brian, I'll teach you how to do something with this that matters. If you're willing. And I had nothing going for me, so I took him up on it. And, he put me on stage for the first time about a month after that. He said, hey, come to my event in Manhattan, Kansas. I'm doing this patriotic rally. I'd love for you to be there. And I said, well, Dave, military doesn't pay me that much money. It might, I don't know if I can get a plane ticket right now. I'm kind of going through a lot, if you couldn't tell. He said, don't worry, we'll pay everything. I said, I'll be there because I grew up poor. And if you offer me something free, I'll take it. And so I showed up. I didn't know how the scope of this thing. And right in the middle of his speech, he looks down at me, points to me on the middle row and says, come on up here, Brian. Tell him about yourself. And I'm wearing these compression gloves. Yeah, I'm wearing these compression gloves because my hands were third degree. My face and neck were pink from the second degree burn still. And I get up on stage. He hands me the mic. I turn to the audience, and there are 3,000 people there in this packed-out gymnasium. It's beyond standing room only. Like, you can't even, doors are open, and people are, outside. And I basically said, hey, I'm Brian. I got blown up. I guess I'm still here for a reason. It was like the worst inspirational speech ever. But something happened that completely shifted the course of my life and ended up changing the direction of my family tree. And it was because of Dave, because I met him. And when I got off stage, here's what happened. Getting on stage didn't change me. Every time I get on stage, it helps me. But when I got off stage, this young lady came up to me, 22 years old, 23 years old, about the same age as me at the time. And she said, hey, Brian, She said, I was raped and I was molested and I was abused as a child. She said, as a teenager, life was hell. She said, now I'm in my 20s. My boyfriend was abusive and he just broke up with me. And I tried to kill myself last week, but I failed suicide. And my family had to, get me and everything. And they brought me here tonight. And she said, but if God can get you through all that, if you can survive everything you've been through, I think I can get through this. And something in me snapped. I didn't even know what happened. All I realized is that this lady's not going to go home and drink a bottle of pills or put a pistol in her mouth and pull the trigger. And here's the thing. I didn't have any advice for her. I just said, wow, that must be really hard. Like, I'm really sorry to hear that. But she found hope because she simply had knowledge of what I had survived. And I found a great sense of meaning. I would learn later what that was. I found a great sense of meaning in the suffering I've been through because of the fact that it helped somebody else.
I love that you said that, because it's about hope. It's really about sharing that hope with others. I was listening to a message from my pastor on our Sunday message, which is really interesting now because everything's virtual, of course, because we're in the middle of this coronavirus lockdown. And he said, when I was a young pastor, I had to go to a hospital. And he says, I didn't know what to say. And he was 21, 22, 23, about the age you were talking about, right? He says, I didn't know what to say. And the old pastor, the old bull, young bull kind of story, but this on a little bit more serious note, said, you know what? Just be there and listen. And that's all you had to do. Think about what you did. You just stopped, you listened, and you made a difference in someone's life. And now look at you, 13, 14 years later, probably, right? Yeah. And here you are making a difference in people's lives in so many different ways. Like I said, very multifaceted. And I find it so interesting that you're able to take all these different pieces and use your own experiences. I love that. So,
well, what's interesting about when I met her? I didn't realize it, but the effect I had on her, years later, I realized this. It's the same effect that Dave had on me at the hospital that day when I met him. Because here's what I saw. Two things make up a great mentor, two foundational pieces I think a mentor has to have. And it's connection and it's credibility. I connected with Dave's pain because he was injured in war just like me.
Sure.
But he also had credibility. He's been in my shoes, but he didn't stay there. And for the 30 some years, for almost 40 years at that time, he had been married to the same woman happily, very successful in his career as a speaker, a writer, author. He founded several multinational nonprofit organizations and is still doing work today. All that, I saw somebody I related to and had credibility, sort of like the right to speak to me. Well, with this lady, she saw somebody who knew pain. And she also saw somebody who was moving on in spite of it. And it's weird because I didn't see it at the time. But the same effect I had on her is actually the mirror of what Dave had on me. And I just switched roles and I didn't know it.
So you talk about mentors. You mentioned the word mentors a couple of times. So they've obviously been important in your life. How important are mentors in someone's life? So for someone that's listening right now, someone's listening or watching, we hear the word mentor, but what is that? What's the power of that? And how can someone find someone to help them or mentor them?
Well, it's really a mentor is really just a person who can guide you, who has the right and the credibility and can relate to your struggle and can guide you to the place you're trying to go.
Okay.
And so I've had mentors. People wonder, well, Brian, how have you stayed married through all this time? I married my wife 3 months before I went to Afghanistan and then got injured while I was over there. 99% of my marriage is post-war and all the effects that come with that. How do you do what you do in speaking, in your career? How do you write books? How do you all this stuff? If I ever want to do something, I just find the absolute best person in the world that I can afford and I just go learn from them. When I talked about, learning from Larry Wingett a lot with speaking and the business side of it, he's one of the top people. If
Absolutely.
you've heard him speak,
know Larry.
He's impossible to forget. And, he knows so much, and, very eccentric, but I was trying to do better on the business side of things. Now, and I still had some questions, but my original mentor, Dave, he taught me how from the stage to reach out and touch somebody's heart with my words. And so those are two very different, very powerful and necessary aspects of speaking. And so whenever I'm trying to do something, I find whoever's the best at it that I can afford to be around, and I go spend that money, and I commit 100% to it, and I use everything I possibly can that they teach me.
See, I love that. You're willing to invest in yourself.
Well, no one else is going to.
Well, and that's just it. Most people are not. And what I hear is
Most people are
waiting for someone to give them something or do something for them. Why won't they mentor me? No, go find it. And in my book, Roll Up Your Sleeves and Get to Work.
Yeah.
Which I said is get a coach.
Yeah.
I obviously want you to get a coach, but the reality of it is not only do I want you to get a coach, I have a coach because that's what I do professionally. So, but are you investing in yourself?
And here's something we say in the military.
When? Go ahead.
Yeah, there's something we say in the military, and somebody actually put it on a little sticker, and I think I paid $10 for this little sticker. Well, here's what it says. No one is coming. It's up to us.
Yeah.
And I tell that to the military when I speak for them on resilience. I tell that to college kids. Man, when I speak on college campuses, they think the government or someone's going to come save them. And I'm like, no, nobody's coming to save you. Like one of you one day, one of you in this room might be the president someday. And that's not even no BS. And nobody's coming to save you. Like, it's up to you to now make things happen and gather with people around you and link arms and make this place better. And nobody's going to save you. Nobody will. Nobody's coming to the rescue.
I earlier today, I'm working with a couple of clients on my coaching calls, my executive coaching, and we got talking about different things. And one of the things that we got talking about is what's going on now. People are scared. People are really scared of what's going on with the economy. And, as a point of reference, we're recording this during the, 2020 COVID-19 quarantine. We're all in. Business is closed. The stock market took a dump on us. And I said, you know what? I've got to be resilient from my business as a small business owner. You as a small business owner, you've got to be resilient. And I was having a conversation with one of my small business owners. So you've got to pivot. How do you pivot? Because you know what? As much as we think we're getting a bailout, I'm pretty sure I'm not getting a whole lot of nothing this year.
If you do, here's the question you have to ask next. What's this truly going to cost me? What am I giving up for this? Because nothing comes for free from the world, especially from a government. You will not get something for free without paying for it. Some people pay for years for something they took.
Oh, amen. I absolutely agree. So I want to just pivot here real quick. It's obvious that you have a love for people. I mean, I just feel it just coming across listening. And you and your wife, you guys have a passion for how couples communicate. And you've been married a long time now. For someone who's relatively young, where does that come from? Where's that passion come from both you and your wife? And tell us a little bit about your ministry.
I think the passion and the conviction that drives that comes from probably our own personal pain. We both come from broken homes, and we've both been through excruciating amounts of pain in different ways in our lives. And when you've been down so bad and you've been hurt so badly in life, and you've gotten up, you realize that language barriers can't stop you, because the language you speak is called pain, and everybody speaks it. Everybody relates to it. And I've found that at this point in my life, my overarching purpose over everything I do really is to just help other people suffer less. Now, that might be, in what they do, or it might be in their marriage. But here's the thing. A marriage is supposed to be a very strong foundational bond for a family unit. It holds things together. It's your platoon. And if your platoon can't work together, like, there's no sense in even fighting the enemy, because the enemy, all the enemy has to do is sit back and wait, because you're just going to self-destruct. You're going to destroy yourself. And one of the things is that so many people, they have this plan about what their journey is going to be in marriage, or what I call a battlefield, because it is. But here's something that happens. Yeah, here's what happens in war, though. You can plan out the mission, every detail. You jump on the birds, you fly out there in the Blackhawks, they drop you in the middle of a hot LZ, you're fighting, everything else, machine guns are already firing by the time you land. You get down there. Now, under fire, you realize a couple of details on this battlefield have changed. It's not the way we planned it. Well, what do? You can't just sit there and say, oh, well, we plan to do it this way. It's like, nobody cares. That building isn't there. We thought there was 3 buildings. There's 6. Now we have to find out which one the enemy's in. What are we going to do to pivot right now and adapt to this and keep moving forward? Because we can't sit here. We're getting mortars dropped on us. And we have machine guns firing at us. Like, you can't just sit there. And so you have to have some sort of backup plan, or, when things get crazy like that, you have to have something. You don't think logically when those things happen. You respond to your highest level of training. And if your training isn't very high or you're unprepared, you sit there and you get shot. You freeze up. You don't know what to do. Well, without thinking, your training kicks in. You don't have to think for your training to kick in. That's why we do, all these different drills, thousands and thousands and thousands of times.
That's what we
but
use.
People,
in the leadership training, when I do leadership training, we call it, I call it repetition, spaced repetition, and that's all you're doing in training, is doing it over and over and over again. And I have a friend, he's a Vietnam vet, and he tells a story how they practice and practice and practice and practice setting up mortars, so that when that mortar attack showed up, they didn't go, oh, wait, let me get the manual. Where's the base go? How does this work? No, they just went and they did it. On a humorous note, you talk about, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson always said, everyone's got a fight plan until they get punched in the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, until the first punch in the nose, you're like, oh, wait a minute now. Has everything changed? Yeah. So that's life. I think that's life for us. You have this great plan of action. You get married. You got this is going to happen. You're going to have 2.3 kids. You're going to live in this house. You're going to buy this car. You're going to have this job. And all of a sudden, COVID hits. Recession hits. 9/11 hits.
Until a freight train runs straight through the middle of your house.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, what do we do now? It's like, well, you change plans. You pivot.
You
have to adapt.
And I think that's a great leadership tact. Is for leaders, is to, how do you pivot? How quickly can you pivot? And then what happens when you do? And I think that's a great point that you brought up, is how are you going to pivot? You need to. It's absolutely a point.
Well, one of the foundational things is, before you have to pivot, being very clear on what the mission is. Before we ever left the gates to go on a mission, we would spot check our guys randomly. Hey, what's the mission? What's the mission? Hey, you, what's the mission? And it was basically in one sentence, what are we doing? We're going to this village and we're going to take these Taliban leaders out, capture or kill them, and come back. We're taking this route. What frequency are we on? Everybody knew. But so many organizations and even family units, let alone like companies, organizations, businesses, everyone's on a different wavelength and a different frequency. And when the bombs do start dropping, nobody's on the same page. That's why, that's one reason I teach people how to create a leadership battle plan. I literally adapted proven military battle planning communication strategies. And in our marriage program, Marriage Battle Plan, that you were talking about at marriagebattleplan.com, we apply that to marriage because it works. But it also equally applies, because I teach this as a leadership battle plan when I speak to companies and different organizations. I speak for, small companies and nonprofits all the way up to Fortune 500 companies.
Sure.
And the thing is, the bigger they are, the more mess there is, because there's more moving parts, but the structure is all the same. And so if you can get people, I teach them how to develop a 1-page battle plan. And there's 9 points to it. It's like, here's how you draw out a mission plan clearly, so everybody on your team knows what the mission is, who the enemy is. They know what's going on. They know what their role is to play and what it is not, because that causes trouble too. When they go, oh, it was her fault, it was his fault. No, whose job was it? It wasn't the sniper's fault that the machine gunner didn't do his job. It's not the machine gunner's fault that the sniper wasn't hitting his target. It's not the sniper's problem that the A-10 pilot flying above dropped the bomb on the wrong building. He wasn't the one calling in air support. But everyone starts dividing and shooting at each other when things are not clear. And once you have a clarity about what your mission is and what your role is to play, and you do that for your whole team or your whole organization, everything becomes much easier to pivot and adapt when bullets start flying. Because we also have this in the military. We say, it's kind of similar to Mike Tyson when you said, even the best plan goes out the window when the bullets start flying. And that is 100% true. I've lived it.
Yeah, and that's absolutely. And I love your 1-page battle plan. I use something called OPSP, 1-page strategic plan, and it basically has everything that you need to do over the next year,
Yep.
broken down into daily tasks almost.
It's got to be simple.
KPIs, all the business stuff. And I love
Yep.
that your battle plan, which you call the battle plan, I also use, I say, okay, what are the values? What's the vision of the organization? What are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? What's the mission? And what are the values? I think they get lost in today's business environment. You can walk up, like you said, can you randomly walk up to anyone in a company and say, okay, what are our corporate values? What's our vision? Why are we in business? And you'll get Porky Pig. I think
You ask 100 different people, you get 100 different answers
on a wall, and they usually just post them on the wall. And every once in a while, everybody goes by them, but nobody pays attention to them. They're not drilled in. So when you have that battle plan, think about your battle plan. When you can recite what the battle plan is, or the corporate values are, or the corporate vision is, are you more prepared when it hits the fan? So
or even like, not even the vision level, just the practical daily level. What's our mission today? Let's say you're working for like a financial settlement or services company, and your job is in retention, and you say, today our job is to retain 30% of the customers who call to cancel. Leave it there. That's the mission. That's the team. We want, of all the calls that come in, 30% save is our goal. That's our mission. Like, don't even say anything else. Like, that's it. Now you can go around and ask all 10 people in the retention department, what's the mission? To retain 30% of every cancel that calls to request today. I mean, they can say 30%. Everyone knows. And life becomes so much easier. It's that way in every department.
I agree 100%. The clarity. And, and the
That's
military really transitions itself and lies itself to the corporate world as well, I think, because, there's a structure. There's a corporate structure, there's a military structure, there's a chain of command, and there's always a chain of command in a company, regardless of what your company culture is. There's always a chain of command of some sort.
Yeah.
And you have a mission. What are you trying to accomplish? What is it? And I think some of the best companies out there were able to articulate that vision very, very well, and allow their companies or their employees to know why they're doing what they're doing and what the boundaries are, the ROE.
Yeah.
The rules of engagement.
Exactly.
That's what I call the values, are your rules of engagement as well. So that's cool.
And here's one of the reasons that leaders have such a problem with this. Number one, it's a human thing. So you're not special, or you're not disabled, or you're not just a bad leader. One of the reasons that leaders everywhere struggle with that clarity is because they're so close to their own mission. They're too close to their own mission. In the military, we call it the fog of war. When you've been at war too long, and your brain starts to act weird. You're not as hyper alert anymore as you used to be. Things start to blend too much. The black and white becomes gray. It's the fog of war. Well, essentially, it's the same thing in a company. You're too close to your own thing that you can be looking right at the enemy or the right thing you need to do, but you'll look right past it because you're focused on something else. And it's just purely by nature of being too close to your thing, which is why mentors and coaches are excellent, because they can see what you can't. It's the A-10 pilot flying over the battlefield. Yeah, he doesn't know what it's like in your shoes, but he can see things on your battlefield that you can't see, and it might just save you and your people's lives.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned mentors and coaches to do that. And that's one of the roles that we have here at the Peak Performance Group as coaches, is to, as a leader, you become, I call it myopic. Boom, you head it up, you got your blinders up, because you're so focused on whatever that perceived mission is that you're missing some of the other minutia that's out there, some of the other things. So I love that. And that nails, I mean, we're so in tune, it's kind of scary a little bit here. So
well, your brain can only absorb so much and do so much at a time before it has to segregate and compartmentalize and put only in the forefront what's most important now to survival, and push everything else out that isn't related to that as an immediate need. And so things naturally get pushed out of our mind.
Yeah. And I mean, fighter pilots are probably some of the best at doing some of that compartmentalizing, and the military as well. So I've got a bunch of buddies who are fighter pilots, have flown in, F-18s, F-16s, it's, any one of the F fighter planes. And they can compartmentalize. They zoom into what they got to do at that moment. And that's pretty cool. As you know, military team guys, they focus on what the mission is at the time, and they forget about everything else that's out there. So sometimes you got to have that A10 up there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not just the order of events or the task at hand, but it's also shutting off emotion. Sometimes you have a leader that seems emotionless, and I promise everyone's human. That person is probably compartmentalizing. They might have a military background or be of that similar mindset because they're focused on, let's hit the numbers and accomplish the mission. We can be friends later. That's my leadership style. And I'm aware of it, so it's not as destructive anymore. But once I became aware of it, I realized, wow, this is great for the military and being at war. Not so much being married and home with my kids. And so I've had to really adapt that. So I had to learn about myself. And every leader should.
What a great point, learning about who you are. Once you know, I call it the secret sauce. Once you have the secret sauce, you know who you are as an individual. That's self-awareness. And we talk about emotional intelligence, EQ, a lot. That's a huge subject right now. So once you are self-aware of who you are, you can actually manage and lead more effectively. So I'm going to talk about setbacks because you're obviously getting blown up. That was a bit of, you didn't expect that to happen.
And I had a blast.
Had a blast.
Oh, there we go. I've only told that 10,000 times. Yeah.
I know. And it's funny every single time, brother. But setbacks are a part of life. And I know you got knocked down, both figuratively and literally. So what mindset do you have to overcome that? I think, how do you get the right mindset to do that?
Well, the first thing is you have to expect it. Like on any mission, you can plan the best you can, but you have to plan and expect something to go wrong. Like, don't be surprised when things go wrong. Like, expect them. Keep your eye out when they might go wrong as you're on your mission. And when they do, you adapt that little piece. We have in military mission planning, we have a part of the mission plan is called a FRAGO. That's a fragmentary order. Basically what that is, that's literally the part of the mission plan, the 5-paragraph mission plan that, if you get boots on the ground, like we talked about, you're in the war zone, you're doing your thing, whether it's a business or you're literally at war, you get on the battlefield, things are different than you thought. This is different and that's different, whatever those things are. Well, you don't change the whole mission. You just have to adapt those little pieces. And so that's the part of the mission plan that allows you to make that little adaptation to these 1 or 2 places. And so you don't have to throw, the whole bathtub and baby out with bathwater and start all over. You attack those 2 little pieces and you clearly define what they are and what needs to happen. And then you redeploy your efforts. You take action again and you continue on the mission. And so the thing is, just to put it very simple, expect setbacks. I mean, life is a game of, it's a roller coaster. It's a game of making it and then getting crushed, making it and then getting crushed. That's life. It's like Frank Sinatra said, that's life. He wrote a huge hit called That's Life. It's like, why is life so hard?
I'm a Jersey boy. I'm a big Frank fan. Come on now. I mean, he grew up, 3 towns away from where I grew up. He's a little bit older and deader than I am. But.
But I mean, the first thing is just your mindset. If the thing about nowadays is people want to be safe and they want to be taken care of, and they're so afraid that something's not going to go right. I promise the first time you do something, you are going to screw it up. Every great author I know, best-selling author, epic novelist, says, I heard it put this way the other day, be proud to write a shitty first draft because it's going to be. Like, don't be upset by it. Like, it's going to suck. But now you have something to improve on. And it's like, you just get going. Like, you're going to mess things up. Like, my wife and I, we planned out this marriage battle plan program that we talked about. And we were like 2 days away from starting video production to launch the online course. My wife and I were hit by a car in their car that ran through a red light and T-boned them. So now she's been injured for a month. So we've had to pivot. And so we've had to okay, we'll still do this, but now what can we do with this? Well, she needs time to recover. And so I've had to do some other things. You just roll with the punches. I mean, don't complain. Don't whine. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to be around a whiner. I understand if you need someone to talk to, that's legit. And we're all human. We all need our 3 dudes who we go to and we're like, man, I just got to let out some steam. Cool. But just when something happens, all right, what do we do to pivot? And that's one reason I teach the marriage battle plan for couples. That's one reason we teach the leadership battle plan, which is essentially the same thing, but it's in a corporate business context.
Sure, makes sense.
Because it helps minimize when things do go wrong, the destruction, and it helps you pivot really quick when those things do happen, and even foresee them coming if possible. Not always, but sometimes.
No, it makes a ton of sense. It's, being able to, we've been using the word pivot a lot, but I also like the fact that you got to have those three dudes or ladies for three friends or three BFFs or whatever it happens to be.
The three people you can call it 2 a.m. to help you bury a body because you've gotten some stuff.
Okay, we're not burying bodies, folks.
And
but
they're
Carol
not turning
Baskin
over.
is not here. Okay, there's no Carol Baskin. I told you I'd get it in sometime, right?
No tigers in cages, even though I have tigers in cages. Okay.
Yeah,
I digress.
But, who are those people? I always use the analogy. Who's the guy that when you miss your flight and you're coming in on last flight, who can you call to come pick you up at the airport? Who are those 2 or 3 guys, gals, people that will pick you up at the airport when you missed your flight and your wife can't come get you, and all of a sudden, because she's got 3 kids at home, she's not going to leave them all home. Who do you call? That's the person you want to be able to go to. That's the person you can be able to vent to. I love that, and having that is a blessing in anyone's life. So,
the thing is, and in the military, we call them allies.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Who are your allies?
That's a good term. Yeah. Who are your allies? That's right. So folks, think about who are your allies? Who are those 3 people that you can go to? And who are you? Whose ally are you? Because you got to give to get.
And ask this, who have I given permission to speak into my life? Because some people, they won't tell you what they know you need to hear because they think you'll get upset, and so they don't bother. And you don't benefit from hearing what you might need to hear. Make sure those 3 people have permission to speak candidly with you. If they see something, give them the right. And don't get mad at them when they do. They're there to help you. And
that's where we originally met. You and I met was at the men's group that I belong to, Wingman. You spoke there, and you made an impact, or I wouldn't be talking to you right now. You absolutely made an impact on me and the group of men. So I've got a group of men, and there's a bunch, but there's 2 or 3 specific that I allow to speak into my life. And they call me on my BS every once in a while. Trust me, they call me out on it. So that's important to have as well. So moving on, I want to be conscious of your time because I know you're busy. You got a lot of stuff. You got to take care of your wife. You got business going on.
Yeah, we're doing well. We're good.
And she's doing well. I'm glad to hear that. So think of who are some of the mentors that you've had along the way? You mentioned those earlier, but I really want to call them out real quick. That you just went, holy smokes, this person is mentoring me. This is cool. And just kind of,
man, I've had so many. It's like, if you didn't ask me, I'd know. There was Dave Reaver was the original.
Sure, Dave.
Larry Wingett, he helped me, with that business stuff and all that with speaking. I'm looking around all the books. Oh, Donald Miller, he's been amazing.
Okay, good.
If you've heard of Don Miller, he has Story Brand now.
Mm-hmm.
If you heard of Story Brand, I was actually I went through Story Brand twice, and the second time I actually became one of his certified guides that he does through his program. And so that really that program completely changed the way I look at the world, personally and professionally, and how I interact with people and customers. And he was a huge influence. I'm trying to look at the books because I have lots of their books.
Okay, so who do you fangirl over? Who are you going to fangirl over?
I think one of the coolest people in the world is Bob Goff. And I got to spend a couple of days with Bob out in San Diego. If you've read, well, here's his books right here. Love Does.
Yeah.
One of the most just amazing people in the world. He's good friends with Don, actually. Certain people, when certain people walk into a room, everything just feels different. You don't know what it is, but they say this about Jesus. When he came into a town, their spirits were lifted. It was different. Well, with Bob, it's oddly that way. It's when Bob's there, if you have stress on your mind, the whole 2 days I was with him there, it was and we went to his house that night afterwards and hung out on his dock, and it's whatever you're dealing with, you have this feeling that somehow things are going to work out. There's something about the spirit of that man that is higher than a lot of people I've met, and much higher than me, I think. And I hope someday I can make people feel that way. But I'd say he's probably one of the most incredible people I've ever had the chance of meeting and getting to know just over a very short period of time.
Excellent. So folks, check out his books. Check out his. I'm sure he's got some recordings and
he's
audio.
Funny. Oh, he's funny. He's a recovering lawyer. He calls himself a recovering lawyer. His phone number's in the back of this book. Go to the last page. He put his cell phone number in there. Yeah,
that's perfect.
People call him all the time. Yeah, he does YouTube videos and people call him. It's funny.
That's just perfect. So
he only sold like 1 million copies, so his phone rings off the hook.
I'll bet it does. So I want to be conscious of time here. Anything you want to promote? New biz? Anything else that's going out? A shout out to anybody? Stuff. Talk about your marriage. Conference.
I mean, if you're in a company, if you're a leader in any aspect or at any level, and you're trying to communicate clearly with your people up and down the chain of command, so you can get more done and start to grow your company or your department again. I help people just like you create leadership battle plans so that you can move forward and everyone's on the same page. Now, moving to that, my wife came to me and said, well, you teach this to companies. This would work for couples. Why don't we teach this for couples? So we have something called Marriage Battle Plan, and it's at marriagebattleplan.com. And basically what it is we teach couples how to communicate clearly using these proven military battle strategies and communication strategies that my platoon actually used on the ground in Afghanistan fighting bad guys. And this stuff works. And the reason it works is this. In war, if you lose, you don't just go home without a trophy. You freaking die. Or they capture you and do worse things and put it on YouTube and send it to your family. So my point is this. These 8 or 9 communication elements that we put together as a battle plan for you, these work. This isn't theory. This isn't Brian's latest bright idea. These have been combat proven for over 250 years, and they work in our life. We taught it to other people, and it'll work for you if you will work it. And it's very simple. We help you create that one-page communication battle plan so you can get past whatever issue it is that is destroying your marriage or ultimately will. So just go to marriagebattleplan.com. We actually have a free download there called 6 Ways to Communicate Better with Your Spouse. Go get that. It's free.
Get it, folks. If it's free, marriagebattleplan.com. I love it. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you the Coach Rick Bald Truth questions that everybody wants to know. So here you go. You're having a dinner party for 6. You're one of them. You get to invite 5 people. 5 people in all of history. What 5 people do you invite and why? They can be alive, dead, in all of history. 5 people.
Definitely Jesus.
Okay.
I would probably also, definitely Bob Goff.
Okay,
we want to have a really good time. I would say probably Marcus Aurelius. Napoleon, even though he had conquered the whole known world by the time he was my age, and he was quite a firecracker from what we know. I can learn something from someone like that. And probably Ravi Zacharias.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Because that guy challenges my thinking, and he fights for the other side of the intellectual side of things. Christian, apologetically, extremely smart. And I would even tag on Jordan Peterson because I definitely would love to sit down with him.
Okay, fair enough. Again, it's your dinner party. If you want to bring an extra, you can.
I'll bring a bonus guest. That's right.
Yeah, bonus guest. There you go. So, okay. Now, second question. Articles being written after you're gone. We all have an expiration date at some point. So after you're gone, you passed on. Articles being written about you, Brian. What's the headline or title? What's the title?
I would just hope I don't even really care about being remembered because ultimately I think we all get forgotten. But I would just hope the headline said something like, he helped people suffer less.
Amen. That's an awesome one. And so finally, what do you do every morning to set yourself up for success, not sex?
Well, that's one thing I do.
It could be one. I don't know. let me go back here a little bit.
I like to start off on a good day. But you guys,
what do you do to set yourself up for success every day in the morning?
One thing I've been doing lately is there's this lake near my house, and there's a trail that goes around it that's about 1/6 of a mile around, and that's how big the trail is. And I'll go out there and I'll just walk, and I don't talk to anybody. I try to get out there early enough so there's nobody out there, and I try not to talk. I don't talk to myself. I think I even try not to think. It's more of a meditation type thing, not to sound real weird. People misinterpret what that means, but some people take meditation as meaning to think on things. Over in the Far East, it actually means to not think at all. And so it's like non-thinking. And to me, it's sort of like just setting the level for the day so that, just walking, starting off peaceful instead of in chaos.
I love it. It's awesome. And meditation is one of those things that is just, again, meditate. You don't have to think of anything. It's all yours. Man, I want to thank you for being on the Bald Truth, Brian.
Well, I'm getting there.
Guest. Yeah, well,
I'm getting there. Maybe in a few years.
But yeah, I mean, seriously, you're spending some time with us. I appreciate it. I'm excited to see all the new stuff that you've got going on. Your marriage battle plan, man, that thing sounds like something every married couple needs to download, find out those 6 things. And
I hope everybody does. My God, it can save your marriage. Like, geez, it's free. Go get it.
We are all under attack all the time. So folks, I highly recommend it. It'll be listed underneath right below Brian. You can see where to get there. So I appreciate you being here, Brian. Love doing it. You've been listening to The Bald Truth with Coach Rick of the Peak Performance Group. We are the company that helps people and organizations reach their potential. If you're looking for a way to grow your organizations, whether it's sales, strategic direction, or leadership development, the Peak Performance Coaches can help you. If you're interested, you can reach us at 817-748-7425 or go to our website, www.mypotentialplus.com. My name's Coach Rick, and that's The Bald Truth.